school is a huge part of your life. You attend it most days of the week, but you probably haven't really thought about how it affects your mentality and your future. Well, I have. I'm gonna start my talk with the origin of the system that goes back to the 18th century Prussia. To Poland, it came around 1717, and its purpose was purely to train soldiers and factory workers. This resulted in classes being divided rather by age than by skill, a certain curriculum, and tests that were supposed to measure if we made any progress. And this system worked great. However, it isn't anymore, because the current skills in demand expect from us problem solving, communication, the soft skills that aren't taught in schools. And quoting French philosopher and writer Albert Camus, who said that the school prepares us for life in the world that does not exist, it is in fact true. Now, how should learning look like? The process of learning that happens in the brain when between two neurons there is a synapse, which is a chemical junction transmitting information. This chemical junction, being the connection in the brain, is responsible for the process of understanding and learning. And this process of, as I said, learning is the most effective when done in an environment that is entertainable for us, when we are having fun when learning, because we do not acquire knowledge while being forced to study, and we do not acquire knowledge while memorizing it. We acquire knowledge while having fun with it and making positive associations with the given topic. And I don't know if you've noticed it, but since 4th or 5th grade, learning stopped being fun. We were suddenly glued to our desks and we had to listen to the teacher that was standing in front of us. And it's a huge change for a young person's brain, along with the lack of movement that is like a reason for not being oxygenated enough, because moving oxygenates our brain. This is all responsible for the students not being focused enough, not being able to understand as much as they would want. And, well, those are just some of the problems that I've noticed, because the first thing that caught my attention was that schools don't really teach us how to learn. When we have our first tests and we are told to memorize something, to study for this upcoming test, the teachers never explain to us any ways in which we can study. For some of us, it may take years to figure this out, and it would be really helpful if we were provided with this knowledge. And later on, when we are loaded with material, this would be, as I said, very, very helpful. I've mentioned the knowledge that we are loaded with because another thing that I want to talk about is the curriculum. Being very overwhelming amount of information that is not always as necessary as we might think. If only it had the most basic information possible, we could actually learn this information, understand what the teacher is explaining, and later on expand this knowledge with the teacher. And this would make learning not only fun for us, not only entertaining, but also, as I've mentioned, we would understand the material that we are learning more. Those information that we are learning, that we are acquiring knowledge on, we are writing tests from that, of course. And you may be familiar with those tests. Of course, everyone is having exams right now. There are many problems with the tests, many problems which I've observed. First of all, they assume that there is only one correct answer, which isn't true because there are numerous ways in which you can solve problems. Secondly, they assume that making mistakes is bad. Aren't we learning from mistakes? Aren't we learning from trying again, and again? And of course, tests are followed by grading. We are used to grading. However, grading and getting those marks isn't really how the feedback should be received. Because what is, for example, an F going to tell us? How is it going to tell us how to fix those mistakes, how we can improve our knowledge? And I know that school isn't as individual as we would want it to be. However, just keep that in mind. All of those things that I've just mentioned, those tests, this curriculum being loaded with knowledge, those things are really overwhelming for us. Those things are overwhelming for young people, and they put a lot of stress on us. They put us under a lot of pressure, and this is really affecting our mental health. It leads to numerous mental health problems, such as depression and anxiety. Those things are really horrible to see because more and more young people suffer from those illnesses, and we as a society do not know how to cope with those illnesses. Those things that I've just brought up are hard enough for neurotypical people who suffer then from those illnesses. And imagine how hard it must be for those who are neurodivergent. People with autism, with ADHD, dyslexia, or dyscalculia. Those people struggle in simple, everyday life. They struggle in the school environment, which is very loud, very crowded, and the amount of stimuluses is very overwhelming for them. This can trigger them, isn't really helping in focusing on lessons and understanding the material. And on top of that, we forget that their brains work differently than ours. And they may need more time on certain tasks, they may need less time on other. And instead of shaming those people for those differences, let's make the school more accessible for everyone and use those differences as an advantage. And I am talking about those changes, about those improvements, and you may be wondering, well, but is it really going to do anything? Is there any point in doing those things? And comparing our system to the one in Finland, which is scoring one of the best in the world, they have more freedom in choosing their classes. Their curriculum is having the most basic knowledge possible, and their environment is much less stressful, and they are under no pressure, almost no pressure at all. And it does improve their lifestyle. They are well-educated people. They are people who are satisfied with the system, and they seem to be in a better place than us. Let's not forget that we have other ways, such as Chmuta, for example. Chmuta being an online learning platform, and you may associate Chmuta with people who are lazy, who don't want to meet with friends, who just want to sit at home. And I've reached out to people who attend this system. And from what I've talked to them, those are people who are really motivated, who are well organized, and they can they can learn the material at their own pace, which later on allows them to improve their passions, to meet with friends, which they could not do before because they were so overwhelmed with the amount of work they had to do. And of course, there are downsides. Not everyone can be as organized as they are, and for some it just doesn't work. But let's just keep that in mind, that there are other ways. And I haven't really said why I made this speech. I made this speech because I've started to observe some symptoms of chronic stress on myself. I started to observe that I am very overwhelmed with the amount of work I have to do, and I am just starting to feel fed up with my routine that is revolving around school. And I thought to myself, well, I cannot be the only one, can I? So again, I've reached out to my friends, reached out to peers of mine, and I've discussed this topic with them. And it turns out that I am not the only one in such a place, in fact. And I've decided to voice our needs. I've decided to voice our problems and shed some light on this broad topic. And to sum up this speech, the school, as I said, teaches us to be soldiers and workers that just listen to commands. It doesn't really train business owner millionaires. However, how many of them do we really need, right? Those ways of learning don't really seem to be working. And with changes that need to be rather fundamental than just subtle reforms that aren't going to do anything, with those changes, we could improve the environment. We could improve the ways in which we are learning, and This would result in better mental health, better understanding of the information that we are provided with. And I think that with enough will, we can surely do that. Let's learn how to learn. Thank you.